Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our roundtable for the Cybersecurity Business Uplift series. So this is our fourth session, technically, of our fifth session, sorry, of our 4-week trial, which doesn't make sense, hence why I mucked that one up. But what we've been doing is hosting a series of cybersecurity sessions to support and further enhance your understanding for the cyber business, whether you're an organization wanting to get more information as to how you can better protect your data of your service users, whether you're just an individual who wants to know, should I be locking my phone? Should I be having different passwords? Where do I keep those passwords? So this series is something that has been tailored to our audience's need, predominantly the community sector within Western Sydney. But as everyone knows by now, given the COVID-19 circumstances, that's just expanded nationally, the entire state, and people have been viewing things internationally as well. So welcome, no matter where you're visiting and watching us from, welcome, and I hope you enjoyed this session. My name is Nadiana Albister. I'm one of the Senior Policy and Project Officers at Western Sydney Community Forum, and I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands. The land that I'm on at the moment is Darug land. I'm on the Darug Nation in Blacktown, and I'm aware that not only our speakers who we have joining us today, but all of you are watching from various different locations. So no matter what land you're watching from, and no matter where you're viewing this session from, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of your lands, where you're standing or sitting on right now, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and future elders of each of those lands. So thank you for joining us. I would like to start introducing each of our panel members. So today's going to be a little bit different. If you've joined us in the previous 4 sessions, we've had one guest speaker, and that guest speaker has spoken about one particular topic. And I'll talk about that in a little bit, but today it's going to be a roundtable, a great opportunity to ask any question that you have about cybersecurity to any one of these speakers. So first and foremost, I would like to welcome Tony Vizza from ISC Squared. So Tony, if you'd like to join us. There we go.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Tony. Now we've also got Campbell Murray from Merrimetso. So Campbell, welcome. I believe you're joining us from far away.
UK, yeah. So it's early morning for me.
Nice and early. So good morning to you, Campbell. And then we've also got Emma Seaman. So Emma, if you wouldn't mind popping yourself onto the screen. Emma Seaman is an ambassador of the New South Wales Cyber Innovation Node, and also is working for a technology company as well. So welcome, Emma. And then we've also got Branko Ninkovic. Branko spoke at our most recent recent cybersecurity uplift series session. And Branko is from Dragonfly Technologies. So once you would be able to see Branko's face, I'm sure, shortly. And while we're waiting, hi Branko, nice to see you. And Adam Smallhorn also, who is from the Commonwealth Bank. Hi Adam, how are you going? So with today, as you can all see, we have a wide range of speakers, not only in terms of your obvious ages and genders, not just cybersecurity being all male dominated. Thank you, Emma, for joining, but also a wide range of expertise in this area. So previous sessions, we've spoken about, like I said, we've had four sessions for the series. The first one was an overview and an introduction into cybersecurity. And that was our guest host, Tony Vizza, was for that one. Then the second week, we had one on online scams. And the online scams one was hosted by Ty Miller, who unfortunately can't join us today, but we'll be able to touch on some of these topics as well with the knowledge of our guests here today. Our third session was on phishing, which was hosted by Campbell Murray, who is with us here today. Again, I love the commitment. I have to say, I love the commitment of the early morning sessions and everything like that. So thank you. And we've also had our final session, which was hosted, the guest host for that one was Branko Ninkovic, and that one was on ransomware. Now, each of these 4 sessions covered each of those topics, but it also explored a lot of different areas and a lot of different questions, I suppose, as well. So one thing, everything's interrelated, as we all know. So a question about an overview question kind of led into ransomware, and ransomware kind of led into phishing and cyber attacks and hacking, and just a lot of different things were discovered and discussed as well. So what we decided to do in this partnership between the New South Wales Innovation Node, New South Wales Treasury and the Western Sydney Community Forum is host a roundtable, which is what we've got here today. So this roundtable is hopefully going to answer the many questions that were left unanswered after those last sessions, because there were just too many questions coming through. We tried to answer them as much as possible, but as you all know, it does get a little bit complicated with some of the answers. I remember from the first session, Tony, I remember one question was it seems like a simple question, and you just took a step back and you said, simple answer is no, but there was just so much behind that no. So hopefully today's session, we will be able to address that. Is that right, Tony?
I hope so.
Hope so. So we'll be going up until 5 o'clock. So we'll be finished by 5 o'clock, and we'll try and answer as many of those questions as we can. So what you will see on your function on Zoom is there is at the bottom of your screen a chat function, a Q&A function, where you can place your questions. You can enter them with your keyboard, and those questions can be read out by myself, and that will be answered by the best or the best person or persons. And then we'll also have the raise hand function available for you to use. That raise hand function, you can ask a question yourself, verbalize that yourself. We'll give you permission to unmute yourself, and we'll be able to do that. We've also got the third function, which is the YouTube channel. We've got one of our colleagues on the YouTube channel. So if you're watching us from YouTube, welcome. And if you've got any questions with that, you are able to ask that. One of our colleagues from the Western Sydney Community Forum will be able to relay that question on your behalf here on this. So I'd like just for a couple of minutes, because I'm seeing who's with us here today in our audience, we've got a couple of newcomers, a couple of people who weren't at each of these sessions. So I might go around the table, the virtual table, and get each of you to speak about, just in a minute or so, a couple of lines about what it is that your organisation does and what, I guess, your area of expertise is. Okay, so I might just start with Tony. Would you mind?
Sure. So I'm from an organisation called ISC Squared, and we are a international not-for-profit certification body for cybersecurity professionals. And I also am an ambassador of the New South Wales Cybersecurity Innovation Node, so I do a fair bit of work there. And of course, I'm also a board member with the Australian Information Security Association, ASA. And through all of this work, my main role is to get people educated in cybersecurity, whether it's mums and dads, whether it's the average user of anything that's computer related, or whether it's to work with people who do want to become cybersecurity professionals and helping educate them on what a good career path for them is. So that's my role in a nutshell.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm going to need some technological support afterwards, because every time I try and mute or unmute myself, mainly the unmute, it's like my computer knows that it doesn't want to do it. So thanks, Tony. I might throw it over to yourself, Adam. So I might just give everyone a little bit of an overview as to why you're here, even though I didn't say that you're in one of our previous sessions. So the Commonwealth Bank has created a number of resources for not-for-profit organisations, and that's why we've been working and partnering with the Commonwealth Bank to really ensure that a lot of organisations, particularly not-for-profits, are able to make use of these resources and understand what their cybersecurity is and what that all means. So Adam, could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, I'm from a small company as well, Commonwealth Bank. Just kidding. But look, yeah, Commonwealth Bank, we really see cybersecurity as something critically important. As much as it affects the bank, it affects our customers. And if our customers are affected, even non-customers, it just affects us because we're also intertied in a digital ecosystem. So yeah, my main job is going out to our business customers, but also our kind of retail customers, and telling them about how they can help stay safe online. It's a massive problem, hitting heaps of customers every single day and thousands of dollars of financial damage, but just broader impacts people's personal data. So it's just critically important. We do this as like just an important thing for the community. So yeah, 2 resources, which I'm happy to touch on in more detail, but one of them is the Damn Good Guide to Cybersecurity and Fraud. It's actually something we produced with the folks at our community. It's the quintessential guide, in our opinion, on how to get up to speed on cybersecurity risk management if you're in a non-profit, but also any business. And then another resource, which is Cool Calm Connected. It's a free e-learning resource that anyone can sign up for. It's white labeled, fun, gamified. You can download it on your phone and distribute it to your team. And it's just, we talk about people, process, and technology and cybersecurity. It's a good way to get a head start on the people side of things. That's done. You can focus on the other pieces. So happy to talk about them later, but there's some really great resources for all Australian businesses.
Fantastic. Thanks, Adam. And yeah, I might just throw in a little pun here. That Damn Good Guide was damn good when I read it. So thanks for that. As the title gives. So yes, those resources, especially the Damn Good Guide, has been shared with a lot of the participants from previous sessions. Each of you who are here today, and if you're watching on YouTube, please email info@wscf.org.au if you'd like these resources. We won't be able to track down each of you who are watching us from YouTube, but if you're in Zoom right now, we'll be able to send each of these resources that we'll discuss throughout the day. So we'll be able to share that with you all. Campbell, can you please share with us a little bit about yourself and your organisation?
Sure. Well, I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Mirametso. We're an international focused on training for practitioners in cybersecurity. And when we say training on for practitioners, I'm also an ISC Squared certified CISSP myself, Tony. But what we're really focusing on is the full 360-degree requirement for cybersecurity knowledge and professionalism. So if we're looking at practitioner level, we often find, we think of consultants, and we look at people like CISSPs or people with penetration testing qualifications. Mirametso looks at the people who are building, the people who are performing the incident response and forensic examinations, as well as the auditors, the risk managers, but really the 360-degree gamut of cybersecurity responsibility, because it's everybody's responsibility now, not just the pen testers.
Nice way to wrap that one up. Thanks, Campbell. And yes, agreed. And I think that is what we have explained and what we've discussed, that it is everybody's business. So thank you. Emma, over to you.
So yeah, I'm in the graduate program at DXC Technology, and DXC is a leading independent end-to-end IT services company, helping customers harness the power of innovation to thrive on change. And as well, I'm also a New South Wales Cybersecurity Ambassador with the Cybersecurity Innovation Node. And so I work there. We connect to industry representatives and participate in hands-on cybersecurity and STEM programs, assisting the node to reach common educational goals with schools and students in particular areas. And I'm also a recent graduate from Western Sydney University from the Bachelor of Cybersecurity and Behaviour there.
Wonderful. I'm not sure if you're able to hear me. I'm aware that my connection is dropping out. So if not, Charlton might have to jump in here. I know I look frozen on my computer, so bear with us, please. Brendo, would you mind introducing yourself?
Absolutely, I'd love to. Thank you, Nadiana and everyone. So I founded a cybersecurity practice called Dragonfly Technologies back in 2005. We're largely a technology company with a major focus in cybersecurity, networking and automation. I'm also the Sydney chair for ASA, as Tony is the board of that organisation. I'm the Sydney chair at the local chapter for New South Wales. Predominantly what you'll find with Dragonfly is we're kind of the in the trenches type of company where we help businesses such as Telstra, Ausgrid understand the security and cyber landscape for those businesses. We do things around education and awareness. We do things around governance and compliance and things like penetration testing, which is essentially testing an organization's defenses for weaknesses in their infrastructure or their environment, and highlighting that to them before the bad guys do. So there's always some of that, and there's always some of that learnings that go with that to understand just how vulnerable and how exposed some organizations are. And that's what we do.
Thank you very much, Branko. Unfortunately, we've lost Nadiana, so I'm going to jump in for a bit until she pops back in. I think we've gotten to everybody now, and thank you very much for everybody giving a quick introduction. We've actually got questions already from our audience, and the first one actually comes from Peter Heggie, and I think it's really applicable since that we're actually using the platform at the moment. So Peter asks, I do online work with government, state and Commonwealth, and they have concerns about Zoom security. What do we need to be aware of when utilizing Zoom, and when is the best time to use Zoom? I'm just adding on to Peter's question now. And when is it time to use a better, well encrypted platform? I'll probably throw it out to whoever wants to answer the question first. I know it came up in the session with Tony, so actually I might throw it to Tony first, and whoever else wants to contribute as well. And I noticed, Campbell, you chucked yourself off mute as well, so please do feel free to throw in. And because this is more of a conversation anyway, please do feel free to jump in.
Sure, I might have first go at this. So in a nutshell, the reason why Zoom is problematic for government is that all the traffic ends up going through a Zoom server somewhere. And while that may not sound like a bad thing, this morning on Twitter, there was a bunch of high-profile people whose accounts were all hacked, and it was all discovered that someone had actually entered the Twitter central servers and had changed their statuses. So it gives you a bit of an idea where you have a centralized party, such as in Zoom, where everything needs to go through a Zoom server, that if that were to be compromised, any traffic that's going through, and if it's government business, can be intercepted by a cyber criminal. That's really the nuts and bolts of it. Over to anyone else.
Yeah, I'll add to that. The thing with any communication is that we have to understand what is the classification of the data. If you're talking to government about your bin collection, your garbage collection, you're probably not going to be too upset if people intercept that traffic. If ever you're doing potentially classified or sensitive government work, then the solution needs to match the classification security requirements for that data. Totally agree with Tony on the supply chain management issue. If you are using a non-decentralized model, such as Zoom do, where all traffic, whilst it might be end-to-end encrypted, if it is passing through that supply chain via Zoom, you don't have full visibility of how that traffic's being handled, who exactly has got full visibility. You're told it's end-to-end encrypted, but it's their platform, so you can't be 100% guaranteed with that. But so find the solution that matches the data classification at which you're dealing with.
I can add to that a little bit. Pre-COVID, Zoom wasn't really heard of that much. I think the transition from being in the office to working as remote workers, working from home, suddenly people looked for platforms and solutions that they could kind of jump on and communicate and collaborate with. And Zoom was sitting there in the wings. It wasn't really ready for COVID. No one was, I don't think. And it hadn't had enough rigorous security testing in its time in its life pre-COVID, and suddenly had ramped up in the market and gone like a hockey stick in terms of usage. And it had some very simple, basic flaws that exposed organizations to all sorts of different issues. One of them being, as Tony mentioned, and Campbell mentioned, encryption and essential servers. But the one issue that you could do is you could literally randomly dial into a meeting and eavesdrop on someone's meeting. And I think that interception, it's like the wire telephone. If you think about that, you don't want people eavesdropping on your meetings or on your calls. And I think that's the first real kind of thread that started to untangle Zoom a little bit. And they gave it a name, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was called Zoom bombing, where you'd kind of jump in on an email, on a conference call, and you could just start to listen. So if you can think about this, everyone from small businesses in, corner shop type coffee shops, cafes, to large multinationals, government, we're starting to jump on the Zoom bandwagon. You can start to see how the nervousness kicked in around their security, because as soon as you untick one thread in that sort of matrix, it starts to raise questions around other areas in their security. So one of the things that we do is we kind of try and help those organizations quickly identify and remediate some of those issues. And Zoom's done that. Zoom, over the course, to their credit, has countless releases have come through, and one of the things that we recommend as part of this forum is that if you do use applications, that you always update them with the latest release, because that release is likely to contain a security fix, and Zoom's a prime example of that. So it's probably a good tie-in.
Great. Thank you very much, Tony, Campbell, and Branko. I wanted to throw it over to also Emma and Adam as well. I mean, because some of the work that you guys work with your clients, what options do you guys usually provide in terms of alternatives, or, when's the best time to use Zoom, or, just looking at other alternatives as well? Emma, Adam, did you want to start us off?
Yeah, that's a broad question. And we don't necessarily endorse any one particular product. We don't use Zoom for what it's worth. I think, look, it's tricky. I talk a lot to business customers all the time. And I think I just put myself in their shoes, and you read an article on the TV or watch it on the TV and it says Zoom's not safe. And then the next minute it says, the internet's scary and what kind of stuff. It's really hard. And I always try and think of the advice in terms of how would I receive it with zero technology or, cybersecurity knowledge or experience or anything like that. And yeah, I think the advice that I'd have to give, if you do have a sensitive conversation you need to have, and you're not a cybersecurity pen tester, and that's even a crazy notion as well, that any one person could know whether a software is secure or not. You probably just need to rethink how you're going to have that conversation entirely. So just going back to more trusted methods is literally the advice we've been giving, because there's no way you could compare Zoom to Teams and whatnot as a kind of lay non-cybersecurity person. So that would be my primary advice. And there's some really practical tips as well. So yeah, I think there's just software can be a problem. Just software can have vulnerabilities, which we've seen in the case of Zoom. There's also the confidentiality of your meeting. The software might be secure, but can people get into the meeting easily? And they were guessing the URL of Zoom and stuff. So that's a concern. And I guess the third thing was that Zoom bombing, the disruption to our meetings. So there are steps you can do to look at. And I think the Australian Cybersecurity Centre published some guidance on how to secure some of those meetings. So if you're using Zoom, probably definitely a good thing, or any material as well, to check that out. One of my favorite examples, hacks that I'd love to give is, like, say you've got a meeting with a prospect, a new client or something that comes in, you send a Zoom invite to them, or any team meeting or whatnot. And then you've got a really sensitive meeting, the next one. If you're not cycling that meeting ID, there's going to be news reports about this soon, that somebody sat on the meeting URL and hid in the background, the chimes weren't enabled, they didn't lock it down, and then they heard sensitive details. In fact, an Australian journalist in the UK got pinged for looking at the firings of another competitor newspaper. So he's probably, I don't know, who might get some jail time for that, who knows. But I just think that's a massive concern as well. So look out for the advice how you can tighten it down, and that's going to be a pretty reasonable thing to do as well for all of the platforms.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was when COVID just hit, I think Hamish and Andy were the ones who accidentally bombed I think it was like the Air Force Zoom call, and they got in a whole heap of trouble for that. I want to hear from Emma as well, in terms of, some of the tips and tricks that you provide as well, and any of your thoughts.
Yeah, so we used Zoom at university, but it was only for like a couple of classes here and there. So I kind of knew about it before COVID hit. But then coming into work, we don't use Zoom, but we also, like Adam does, we don't endorse any other application exactly. But we do just look at how sensitive and how confidential our meetings have to be before deciding what we use from there. So that's probably my biggest tip for that.
Great, thank you very much, everybody. So we've actually got Nadiana back, and I'll probably throw it back to her. And so hopefully everything's all right now. Is everything all right with you, Nadi?
Thanks, Charlton. I have to say, having good colleagues is the best thing ever when these things happened. So thank you so much for doing that, Charlton. I'm not sure if anyone, I'm hotspotting at the moment, and even that's a little bit dodgy, so I apologise for that. NBN, I'm not blaming the NBN, don't come after me, but The NBN is my answer. So thanks for understanding. I can see that you guys have gone through a couple of the questions so far. We've got another one here as well, as most of you panel members can see. So the question comes from Stephen Wagner, and it says, when an individual business believes an email is being used for nefarious access, who and how in public authority can they report this to so action can be taken? I think things like this have been touched on in previous sessions, but we might revisit this. So I might throw this one to Tony. I believe you had spoken about this in one of the previous sessions as well.
Let me just unmute myself. There we go. Yes. So when you do feel that there's an issue with regards to email or any sort of suspicious activity, you can lodge an issue with an organisation called ScamWatch. ScamWatch is effectively funded by the various police forces around the country, and it's a government type entity that looks into all of this and can handle that. If you are a organisation, if you are a business and you have been breached, then if you meet a certain criteria, then you actually need to notify the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner. And that's something that you would be well advised to actually speak with legal counsel around that, because you do need to, if you turn over $5 million a year, you need to actually notify the Privacy Commissioner in regards to that. There's a bunch of different things that you can do. And of course, you can also contact the police. I would encourage you, if you've lost money or you've had any sort of fraudulent activity take place, to contact the police. I've been privy to some instances where people have lost their entire identities and had to go to court and get subpoenas and things. It is not pretty. So you really want to be careful guarding your identity and making sure that if someone's gotten in, they're dealt with quickly.
Thank you, Tony. Would anybody else like to jump on that one? I can see Adam and Branko, you both have your mics unmuted. So I might throw it over to Branko first, and then Adam will go to you.
Yeah, I can. And it's a shame because I don't think there's enough information published about this in how do you actually report and who do you go to. And to Tony's point, immediately people think it's the police, and the police will tell you, well, we've got our hands full. So you've got kind of like a mixed bag of where you should report these. And about 3 or 4 years ago, which no one knows, but the federal government spun up an initiative called ACORN, which was where you actually go online and you report that you've been breached or you've had a cyber incident. And they will then do their best to put you in a queue and go through all the relevant, and they try to filter it out. That's been rebranded now to called Report Cyber. So if you Google Report Cyber, it comes out of the ASD, which is the Australian Signals Directorate. You'll find a whole heap of instructions on how you go about reporting. There's an online form, and you can go through that and report it. I think you'll get a case number. They'll assess the severity of it and also assist you to either recover or come to terms with what's actually happening inside your business. So I'll just add that one in there.
And Branko, you said that one is called Report Cyber, was it?
Yeah, so if you go to, I've got it on the website, you can do this when you're on Zoom and things like that, cyber.gov.au/ACSC/report.
Wonderful. We'll be sure to share that with everybody after this session as well. We can send you the link with that information so you can see that as well as what Tony's spoken about just then. Adam, would you like to put in your 2 cents on this one?
Yeah, look, I agree. I agree totally with what Tony and Branko said. I just want to add, I think it's so broad. Your emails can be hacked and a lot of things can happen. So it really depends what they're doing, what signs you can see. So there are a few cases, and sadly, it's almost too late to prevent it when it's happened. Put your second factor on. But anyway, if it has happened, if it's identity fraud, if it's your personal email, there is an agency, ID Care, who's really great kind of remediation for identity fraud. If it's a data breach, as Tony mentioned, the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner or your lawyers, if you're a business, to understand your implications and legal requirements there, can be terrible. People don't realize it. It's so easy to happen, happens all the time. But the one that I, pay my wages, justify my wages, is mentioning business email compromise. And this would be a thing we see every single day at the Commonwealth Bank, particularly in our business segment. And it's a really good way for your organization to lose anywhere from $5,000 through to hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'll tell you a little bit more what happens, but you should absolutely contact your bank if you suspect this is happening. But the business email compromise, so much of our payments these days occur via email. You send the invoice, you go, oh, we want to change our BSBN account number, please, change it to this and that. We've seen instances where they send a phishing email to the accounts person or accounts receivable, payable, whatever, the CEO. Oh, the lights went out. There you go. They send an email to them, a phishing email. They get the username and password. The email's not locked down with second factor. So they then hack into the email account. They go into your inbox. They're there for 6 months at a time or more. They're researching your emails. We often see that they go to the auto forwarding rules in your settings and they forward all your emails that contain the word invoice or payment to the, whatever the hacker account, his or her email address. And they're looking for the perfect time to strike. And it's when you're going to make a payment to one of your regular suppliers at the end of the month, or you're sending out an invoice for $10,000 and you send it on the Friday at 5 p.m. Well, they're going to, perfect time, they're going to send it at 12 p.m. on the Friday at the end of the month. And they'll copy your email signature, they'll copy your cadence, they'll copy your voice, your nicknames. If you sign up with Cheers, mate, they'll say Cheers, mate. It'll be very perfect. And a lot of us just expecting phishing emails or scams like this to have spelling mistakes and come from an unfamiliar email address. And we have all, through successful cyber education, we've all lowered our guards so that we're expecting this super obvious scam, but it's perfect. It would fool everybody. And the only way to protect against that is calling up to verify whenever you're doing anything about payments. But yes, that happens all the time to customers at the bank, every single day. And you should absolutely call the bank if you suspect this is happening to you or to one of your suppliers, because we can, wrench back the money, but not 3 or 4 months later, because they'll move this money into jurisdictions, within minutes and hours that we can't pull the money back. If it goes to Westpac, we can call them up and get it back. But if it goes to offshore, into iTunes gift vouchers, pulled out of ATMs in Hong Kong, we can't get the money back. So really important to call your bank, and that'll get you 9 times out of 10. There's some other Tom Cruise hacking into the mainframe. I wouldn't worry about that. I'd be very concerned about business email compromise, though.
Thanks, Adam. I'm not sure about everyone else, but you've absolutely terrified me. And I think that's the thing that genuinely, that is the thing. We need to be, I wouldn't say afraid, but so cautious about what this all is. The way you were just describing that, when you were saying they were waiting for the exact moment to pounce and the exact timing and the correct wording, I was getting National Geographic images in my head of a tarantula just attacking this thing. And it is like that. It is a really scary thing for an organization in, say, for example, the community sector. You said $5,000 isn't a lot. It could be not a lot for one organisation like CBA, for example, but for another organisation, $5,000 could make or break you, unfortunately, in our sector.
A whole company, yep.
Exactly,
it's
right.
devastating. Yeah,
yeah,
and I see
it can be.
Every single day there'd be, a charity a week, and certainly small businesses. So, I can't preach it enough.
Definitely. So thank you so much for that. Thanks for that insight. And I'm glad to say I'm not the only one having some kind of difficulties. My lights have also gone dark. So brilliant. I might just...
Oh, sorry, we may have lost Nadiana again with her hotspot. So we'll probably transition into another question as well from the floor. And so this actually comes from David Hill. So he asks, during the last few months, we've been warned as a country about foreign actors that are a real threat. Is it real? And do we as small organizations need to worry about that?
Yeah, I can on that subject for you if you like. Yeah, you're being warned now, and specifically for the Australian market, because there has been an increase in activity from certain regions of the world that are focusing on Australia, usually for political reasons. However, it's always been a real threat. Foreign intelligence agencies and foreign actors have been prevalent. Now, we're just talking about phishing. It's very interesting, Adam said that phishing email attacks that are effective are 100% perfect. And there's a methodology behind creating the perfect phishing email based on psychological principles. However, if you consider that all the spam and all the bad phishing attempts you've been receiving over all of these years, which is the bulk of it, may have been training you somewhat. to identify spam. And these are the kind of psychological operations that foreign intelligence agencies and foreign forces have. These kind of resources, they're pretty much unlimited. They have more resources than any criminal gang. And I won't go into details about different regions of the world, but there's a lot of research about it out there. And the question is, what are they after? Well, depending on the region, they're after intellectual property for a lot of the cases that we see. So intellectual property around manufacturing, things like engineering, pharmaceuticals, that's very, very valuable data. Those formulas and engineering solutions that have been found. For smaller businesses though, do you need to be worried? Well, you're part of the framework, you're part of the economy. And so whilst it may be an attack against a nation state from another nation state, you form part of that intelligence platform. You inform, if you've got open ports and unsecured services, whilst they may not be necessarily interested in what you've got in your IP, they are definitely interested in what the country looks like as a whole. So yeah, there are attacks out there. You might get hit. Not saying that you're not going to, even if you're a very small business, you can still be compromised. But you do form part of the national threat surface, which is of great interest to foreign actors.
I can chime in on that a little bit if you'd like. And to extend on where Campbell was heading with that, is that larger organisations have, they have the resources and the budgets to fortify their infrastructure and to create, awareness campaigns and implement controls to block a lot of attacks. And those that are out there attacking, whether they be state-based, which is, like agencies from overseas, when we talk about state-based, or just common criminals, they look for the weakest link. We talk about security and weakest link a lot. And when these larger organizations like your utilities companies and your telcos, which can be broken down and cause havoc in a society, they find the weakest link along there. It's usually the suppliers into those organizations that become that weak link in that point. And like 5 years ago or so, it feels like a long time now, but an air conditioning supplier or servicing company was cause of a major breach in America for I think it was over 300,000 sort of credit cards account was stolen as a result of the criminals going in via the small business, getting onto their server, who had a direct VPN into the target, which is not their target, I'm sure target of a different brand in the US, and basically sat there and installed their software and intercepted all the credit cards through their point of sales devices. So, that's another way for criminals to get a foothold into organizations through what bigger businesses see as trusted partners, but yet as a result of not having that vigilance around security, become that weak point. And what you'll see now is a lot of these larger organizations are starting to say, well, we want to put a checklist in front of you in order for us to collaborate and do business through digitally and digital medium. You must have at least these minimum security controls in place. So we'll see a lot more of that. And that's where I think that's going. So if I was thinking in my mindset, as we do in our business, we have to put our mindset in what are the criminals doing and what are the threat vectors that they're coming from. I would be saying I'd be going for the weakest link. And I'd say that the state-based, and that's why as a whole, the Prime Minister got onto that and made that announcement, because as a whole, there's a whole framework here and it's all interwoven, especially today in this age.
Yeah, and I'd love to throw it into the context of some of the people that we work with as well, especially within the community sector, where a lot of us feed reports and data back towards the government, and that's a lot of the time is key client information that obviously can provide information to some of the people entering our systems as well and feeding into that larger system like you were talking about earlier, Branko. I noticed, Tony, you've got your mic unmuted. Would you like to share a bit more as well?
Yeah, this is a bit of a story that might actually illustrate for some of the organisations here the problem. A number of years ago, I was involved in a investigation. So a real estate organisation, very small real estate organisation, were contacted through official channels to be told that their systems had been breached. And the hackers in that instance wanted to gain access into some of the systems that real estate agent would have had access to through the government, like land titles office, rates notices, all that sort of stuff that's official, where they lodge bonds with, for people who live in real estate. And they were using that real estate agent to get access to that. And they did it because they had absolutely no protections in place. So they were running this as on the smell of an oily rag. But it gives you an indication in terms of what Campbell's mentioned and in terms of what Branko's mentioned, the vulnerability that smaller organisations put themselves in when they have access to some of these more critical systems that exist that service society on a greater level.
Great, thank you, Tony. This next question, I wanted to kind of target it towards Emma as well. So what can a business feasibly do to protect against ransomware and equally distract attacks or system failures?
Sorry, my internet just cut out for a second. Do you mind repeating that question?
No problem at all. So this comes from Dex Black. And so what can a business feasibly do to protect against ransomware and equally distract attacks or system failures?
I guess the best thing you can do is just watch out for those things that can cause the ransom attacks. It is looking at your phishing emails and making sure that you are vigilantly active in that space. It is getting your organization as a whole. Cybersecurity is now not just people in IT. You need to look at all aspects of an organization, your HR, your marketing, and make sure that they are vigilant in their space as well, not just relying on the security and IT team to look after that space as well.
And so what would you recommend anything that an organization do? And I'd also like to invite our other panelists as well to share some thoughts.
I think
happy to jump in. Oh,
I was thinking Emma was leading onto the right track there in terms of it's no longer, generally cyber is now, was always seen as an IT issue and you have IT people responsible, but that's now broadened out and it's more about a people issue and it's more of seen as a risk. What is the risk to our business and how can we put in different processes around understanding that, whether it's awareness or whatnot. One of the things I think if you're as a small business, there's another thing to consider is that the likelihood that not if, but when I'll get a ransomware attack, you most likely will be attacked by that because despite all your attempts and all your awareness and like Campbell was pointing out earlier, it's no longer just these, and also Adam was pointing out, it's no longer these, really obvious emails that are phishing. It's kind of, you will get to that point where you might get compromised. So, to me, my simple kind of response that would be have backups, right? So backup every day, backup all your data every day, so that in the event you do have that, you can sort of go, well, what's the worst case scenario? I've lost 4 hours of work versus 6 months, 4 years, or whatever of, whether it's family photos, business invoices, and so on. So it comes down to something just as simple as backup. And small businesses, I can appreciate that that's probably not happening. So that would be my kind of response to that one.
And test your backups as well. That's the other one, because everyone has the backups. Do they have the backups? Are they working? Are they up to date? Will they work when we go to restore them when the whole world's ended and whatnot? And I think more broadly, there's a lot of things you can do to prevent ransomware. I think education is absolutely key. That's been mentioned. So being aware, not clicking it in the first place. There's stuff you can do to isolate your network. Admittedly, that's a little more complicated. The backups is absolutely key and testing them really important. But if I step back from the tech geeky stuff, because that'll be the IT person or the IT team that's kind of handling that, and education is everyone's job and awareness. But I chat to a lot of businesses and organizations, and this idea of the old boring business school stuff, the business continuity planning, more thinking gee, I'm helping 300 refugees a week, or we're growing this many products per day. What would happen if the IT systems we rely on and depend on suddenly became unavailable for 3 or 4 weeks? What would the costs be to remediate that? How can we quickly switch over to continuing manual processes? You look at Lion, the 4X Gold people, or the Milk people. You look at Toll, who hit not once but twice this year with ransomware. The real sting of the tail, and all the technical failures were there, but the remediation and getting back up on their feet is what cost them the $200 million. So, it'd be nice to have a $200 million loss to lose. The bank certainly does, but a lot of different organizations will be in different positions, but you can absolutely have your critical, important work disrupted by that. So being able to respond to that, I think is really important as well. Like a great example, we had a customer I met through the grapevine, an accounting firm who had their QuickBooks or their Xero software. It was on a localized instance, a server on their network. And of course, they didn't have any isolation there. One of the people clicked the link, it spread across the network, and they were being ransomwared for $30,000 to decrypt their accounting books. If you're an accounting firm, like, your accounting software is the most important asset you have. It's all your clients' books, it's all your data, it's how everyone works. That, like, when you're, and the Damn Good Guide is good about this, it says, write down all your data assets, prioritize them, which are the highest risks. If they were lost, encrypted, whatever, which are the highest risks, and then prioritize them. I could, like, 30 grand is a no-brainer to pay if you're an accounting firm, but obviously you don't want to pay it because you're funding financial crime. There's no guarantee that they'll actually decrypt your files, and then they'll hit you again like toll. So ideally don't be in that situation. Do your preparation, know what your critical assets are, protect them first, have continuity plans in place, and then yes, the technical stuff, the backups, isolation, education are really important as well. But let's put my little business hat on there for a second.
Great, thank you guys. We've actually got a live question from Anita Hanna. I'm just going to allow her to speak now. So Anita, you're live on air. Would you like to ask a question?
Hi, thank you, Charlton, and thank you so much to the panel. I really appreciate everything that you've been saying and the advice you've been given. Now, my question, look, in the community or not-for-profit sector, we don't tend to be IT experts. We don't know this stuff that you're sharing with us, which is why I absolutely appreciate it. At an individual level, I can generally see a scam email and see that kind of thing. But, you know, people in the not-for-profit sector are concerned with things like, you know, supporting older people or people with disability, serving homeless people meals every day, you know, working in that policy space. So we don't have the time or the expertise to focus on this stuff, unfortunately, which, as you've said, is critical. And I appreciate the stuff you've said, both preventative and reactionary stuff. Are you aware of any kind of financial support provided by governments or any pro bono support provided by organisations to assist not-for-profits in getting this stuff organised at both training for individuals, but also the organisational level and getting systems in place to prevent? Just an easy one for you.
Thanks, Anita. And I think Adam actually alluded to a little bit before through the damn good advice on cybersecurity. Do you want to touch on that for a little bit, and then we'll also throw it on to our other panelists?
Yeah, I'm happy to touch on that. It's not a great story, to be perfectly honest with you. I think just when it comes to cybersecurity, there's just an economic reality that, like, this expertise is hard to get master of it. Requires probably a dedicated person, and in some situations that economics is not going to work out. Your specific question around funding, I'm not aware of any funding there, but I know the government at one point was offering free tailored assessment around cybersecurity to all Australian businesses, and nonprofits sat into that as well. But this is something that certainly in my day-to-day job, we think and stare hard into this problem about how we can help solve it. I know the Australian Cybersecurity Centre is thinking really hard about this as well. What the industry's got to, the level we've got to, is we're getting better and better about making the advice and information, like making it available, making it digestible. I mean, that's probably the maturity level we're at. So the information, more or less, will be out there that you can consume. This forum is a great example. The Damn Good Guide, cyber.gov.au, lots of resources there. I think probably increasingly, and we're having a conversation about this today, how can we as the bank, with connections to a lot of nonprofits and businesses, how can we make the security more tangible and turnkey? So it's something we're actively thinking about. I absolutely know the Australian Cybersecurity Centre is thinking about that too. Stepping back a bit, I think there is some value, and this is a debate in itself, that as much as you can delegate, and delegate's a careful word, as much as you can kind of not have to worry about some of the problems, the better. So in that accounting firm example, you may be arguably, if you're not an expert in running servers and isolating your networks, maybe it's better or worth considering if we can outsource it to Xero as a hosted platform. And certainly email is a case like this where people have gone from local servers in your network to a cloud-based email, Office 365. Now, that's a spicy comment because there's pros and cons to that. But generally, the trend in that direction, when you're kind of getting more packaged software as a service type things, you generally, like now Microsoft's handling the security and they've got the teams and resources. And there's zero trust and all these buzzwords where more and more of that's handled by external organizations, have their own set of kettle of fish of risks there. But that is one approach you can look at. But yes, look, the Damn Good Guide is a fantastic PDF. You can just Google Damn Good Guide and it'll come up on our community website. It's like a 101 primer. If I was going to speak to my nonprofit board about the cybersecurity risks that we faced in our organization, I'd read that because it talks, from the risks to passwords to hardwares to software and like as a service, you name it. Even like it's got draft policies you can copy and paste. So we really wanted to make that easy, and our community people were really great. That's a great resource. And on the education piece, if you don't have cybersecurity experts to do that, that training, Cool Calm Connected, you can Google it, Cool Calm Connected CommBank, and you can actually sign up, and it's white labeled. It doesn't mention CommBank. That's our gift to the community and to Australian businesses. That's a few pieces, but I think there's a long way to go, and that's a shame.
Thanks, Adam. I wanted to actually also throw it to Emma. As the ambassador for the New South Wales Innovation Node, what can the node provide in terms of support for small organizations who may not be able to afford this kind of level of support?
I don't think I'm the best person to answer that in terms of the node, speaking for the node, as I do just work closely with the schools. Tony is also an ambassador. I don't know if he's come across anything in that space yet, but I can't say personally for me, I know anything at the moment.
Yeah, look, it's a good question. There is nothing that I'm aware of within the innovation node. So the idea behind the innovation node is really to help organisations that have innovative solutions and products in cybersecurity to get those out to market, right? Which is a great initiative, but it's not what we're talking about here. My advice to small organisations is to always look at the Small Business Cybersecurity Guide by the Australian Government Cybersecurity Centre, which is the official advice that is published by the Australian Cybersecurity Centre in very plain speaking language. It doesn't go into technical buzzwords and any sort of wizardry like that. My view is also that you do need to do a number of fundamental basics, the same way that you would do for OH&S, for instance, for an organisation. This might sound completely blunt, but if there's one reality that's come out of this COVID issue and cybersecurity, is that it's really hammered home the point that you have to do cybersecurity, whether you like it or not, in whatever organisation you are, you have to take this into consideration. Now, for many organisations, to your point, I think it was Anita who asked the question, to your point, yes, the expertise is lacking, and that's why there are resources out there from certified cybersecurity professionals, from people such as Branko and myself who work within the ASA community, Campbell who's illustrated, who's a certified cybersecurity professional. Sometimes you do need to defer to those experts who can advise you and give you the information that you need for your organisation, because not every organisation is the same. Unfortunately, it's an awful way for me to say you've got to bite the bullet on this one, but that's really it, unfortunately.
I'll probably just add to that, like I'm not aware of any government. There was at one point, as Adam pointed out, some subsidised penetration testing where you could kind of engage a service such as ours and there'd be some subsidy from the government, but I think that's since been pulled. But I would say that to Tony's point is use all those resources as a reading guide and coming up to speed with the knowledge, but also go to someone that you're close to who's providing you with the IT services and get them to give you some sort of steer around what it is you need to do. And the thing is, you don't have to bite the whole thing all at once, right? So this is a problem that's probably been festering around for a long time. And what you want to do is just have a plan over time. We call this a maturity model. So over the years, you kind of improve the hygiene. We're using these words, hygiene and things like that, you know, to kind of make your organization more cyber resilient. So the thing is, you do the small things first, like using Office 365 in the cloud, and you're not using two-factor, multi-factor authentication where you get something to your device, turn that on, for instance. That doesn't cost you any money, right? And so it's kind of like getting a bit of that step-by-step steer. And to Adam's point earlier, and Tony, is identify where your data is and what you need to protect, and other things you just kind of prioritize down lower in the list. And that's probably where I kind of add to in that conversation to respond to that.
Great, thank you very much, everybody. So unfortunately, we've only got about 4 minutes left. So I'd love to hopefully bring back on Nadiana for a bit of a wrap up. And just before I hop off as well, I'd like to thank all our panelists today and also our audience members. Unfortunately, I had to turn on my light, and so I was a bit pale before, so I've had to turn on my light to make myself look a bit more, you know, humanly. So take it away, Nadiana.
Thank you, Charlton. And honestly, thank you, Charlton. Massive thanks. Yeah, let's do a session, guys, on how to not have your computer die halfway through a presentation, how to ensure your NBN doesn't cut out, and how to ensure you turn on your computer correctly. I needed manual just for that, please. So thanks very much. I can see that I've been watching from the background for the last 20 or so minutes, and it's been a fantastic session. I just want to read out just a couple of the quick comments that have been made in the chat box here. An argument perhaps to be made about cost benefit, the cost and the benefit argument to be made for all banks, perhaps to be providing this kind of service that you were talking about, Adam, more directly, including funding expertise to do this work. So that's a very good comment to make. I agree, because obviously that's something that we've all benefited from, Adam, those resources that you've spoken about. And I think in this kind of space, like with a lot of them, the more the merrier. The more resources, even though it may be overwhelming, it's fantastic just to be able to have those options. And I know, Campbell, in one of your sessions, you were talking about some of the other resources that are available internationally as well. So there's a lot. Thankfully, we've got the internet, so there's a lot of great resources out there. Like I did say at the beginning of this session, we'll be sharing those after this session for all of you who are here on Zoom. For those who are watching elsewhere, please email info@wscf.org.au, and we'll be able to share that with you. There's also a few links, so thank you to those of you who have sent the information and have sent a few links and resources. We've also got a really, might make it a really quick question around the question of the weakest link. Do you have any advice for folks about securing the system and computers accessible to their business partners or even their family member? Campbell, I might throw it over to you for a 1 minute at most answer.
Right, there are two things, best advice I can give you is one, patch everything. Do not delay on patching. That is absolutely critical. Do not deliberately turn off any security facilities that are on your IT. Do not disable your firewall unless you have a really good reason or somebody has advised you to do so. The second thing, which we have alluded to, and both Adam, Branko and Tony and Emma have gone over, that there are two trains of thought that you can adopt. Now, these are formal models. Back in 2018, I think, or 2017, we were talking about cyber resilience. And by resilience is the thought process that I've been hacked already. What do I do now, even if you haven't been? So everything around your IT needs to work on that basis. So back everything up. I've been hacked. What do I do? Well, I can restore from a backup. Well, I can't do that if I haven't got the backup. The second principle, which evolved out of the cyber resilience conversation, was zero trust, which is simply to just not trust your IT. Don't trust your files. Look at it with great suspicion at all times. Expect it not to work. Be pleased when it does. Follow that kind of advice. Follow that mentality and thought process, and you're gonna be on a better road to not ending up in a disaster. But seriously, patch, back up, expect it to happen, and be thankful when it doesn't.
Thank you, Campbell. I loved that summary of that answer. That's fantastic. And I think a key thing that we've all spoken about, or you've all spoken about as well in this session, is planning. Adam, you've alluded to it. Tony, you've alluded to it. Branko and Emma, I heard you guys speaking about that as well. And Campbell, you just did it as well. So having a plan where you've got plans for emergency in Western Sydney, for example, bushfires, flooding. We've got plans for if there's a robbery. We've got plans for everything. We've now recently thought about a pandemic plan. Now let's think about cybersecurity plans. So what is our plan to ensure that we're not hacked, that we're not victims of phishing, that there's things like that we've got in place. So plan. Make sure you're ready. And as Campbell said, ensure that you've got that. Don't trust anyone. It's stranger danger out there. The internet and our technology is that stranger danger. Don't trust it and be pleased when it works. I know I will be. So thank you so much to all of you. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Branko. Thank you, Emma. Thanks, Tony, and thanks, Campbell. Thank you very much for your insights and for being a part of this panel session. It has been a hoot, and I'm sure we've all walked away with something new information, new resources. So thanks very much, everybody, for being a part of this, and hopefully this has been useful for you. See you again next time. Bye, everyone.